Hey everybody, welcome to the show, Daytripper Photo Show. Today we're talking about how to set up a home studio for product photography on the cheap. This is actually an idea from Gabriel that you had a few weeks ago. You thought it'd be a good idea to talk about how to set this kind of stuff up. What were you thinking when you originally thought the idea, Gabe?
Well, when originally I have a home studio at home.
Really?
Wow.
That I wow, I'm trying to be as unredundant as possible, but it's just not possible. And I love shooting in it. I love just getting an idea and setting up my lighting and stuff like that and firing away. And I use Alien Bees, so they're relatively cheap lighting. But I was walking through, we just recently did some renovations on our home, so I was at Home Depot about 5 times a day. And I was walking through, and I kept on seeing all these LED lights and panels and strips and stuff like that. And so I was talking to my neighbor, who's an electrician and a little bit insane, and I asked him, like, what would it be to take, I picked up, the fluorescent tube lights that you have in, like, cubicle offices? Right? Well, yep. I picked up one of those for my kitchen, except instead of it being fluorescent tubes, it was LED strips. So the light is fantastic. You can leave it on 24/7. You use about $2 worth of electricity. They never really burn out. The color is constant. And I asked them, I go, how much would it take to take 2 of those lights and attach them to like a switch and use it for photography? And he said that it would be almost trivial to kind of adapt them for a photography type situation. So, you go from ordering cheap $500 lights to picking up 2 $85 lights. Doing some quick modifications on your own. Daytripper Photo is not responsible for any injuries that may occur while modifying lighting or using any techniques that you hear about in this show. And so, but then after that, you've got these 2 huge strip lights, like they're 4 feet, right, of constant light. The 2 huge strip lights that come with a built-in diffuser, or you can take off the diffuser and just put wax paper over it. You can put wax paper to diffuse it, or tissue paper if you want different colors. It never heats up. That's the thing about LEDs, is they never get warm, so you can put stuff right on the bulbs and stuff and not have to worry about heat. So I was just, as I was going through, I'm like, man, like this would be awesome for a home studio, and you can do it for really like super cheap. So that's where I came up with the idea.
It's a great idea. Money doesn't grow on trees, that's for sure. Actually, it's funny. I was just talking with our buddy Sean Johnston the other day, and Sean mentioned that he had a contact for LED lighting for automotive. I guess it's called Free Throttle. And he was talking about how you can modify these lights for making ring lights and all kinds of different lights that come on like a silicone thing where you can stretch them and move them. So that's actually something that we should look into as something we should possibly use. Maybe get some stuff and try it out and take some sample shots with it. That'd be very cool. So since tonight's show is on home studio kind of photography on the cheap, we've got some great things to talk about. Navi and Gabriel have both done a lot of great, let's call it stock photography, whether it's shooting jewelry like Gabriel did, or shooting for the shopping channel like Navi did, or even just the photos that Navi you're doing for your challenge or your theme photos that you're doing right now. A lot of that's very much in the same vein. So Navi's latest Walking Dead photo was amazing. Awesome. I'm loving what you're doing with your series. It's so cool. And would you agree that a lot of the same concepts would apply to that kind of a thing as it would to the product and stock photography?
To a degree, yeah. I think if you're doing product photography for eBay and stuff, it'll be a little bit different because it's usually on a white backdrop, right? But if you're trying to do, like you see, product photos where it's a lot more creative, like, the nail polish shots or the fancy shoe shots, it doesn't have to be on a white. It's a little more, I guess, creative. There's more elements to it. So, but I mean, sort of, I guess you're working within a smaller space or confinement of the size of your product, essentially. Right.
Well, your TV dinners photos were fantastic. I realized that that's together. And if anybody wants to see Navi's stuff, go to navinhum.com. You can check out her special. Pardon me?
On the blog.
On the blog. And her latest post is TV Dinners, The Walking Dead edition. So super cool stuff. I would venture to do a screen share and show you this right now, but my computer would probably explode. So I'm not trying to tax this computer. I'm living on borrowed time right now, I think. But it's okay. All right, so it's going to be a lot of fun, what we're going to talk about today. Before we get into it, though, I'd just like to remind everybody that this is something that we've been doing for quite a while. This is episode 123 or something like that. And we've been going through for quite a while, and we have a huge backstory or back history of episodes that you can watch. If you want to learn anything about photography and you want to check these out, go to our YouTube channel, like our channel, subscribe to it. You'll get all the updates every time we do a new show, and you'll just be in the loop. It's a lot of fun. It's actually funny. I had a meeting today with Ron Clifford, and he really summed up what I think is so important about the Daytripper photo community. And he asked me, what 3 things do people come back to me for? And I thought about it. I was like, what 3 things do people come to Daytripper Photo for? So my quick answer was challenge, inspiration, and community. And I think that pretty much sums it up, doesn't it, guys? People want to be challenged. They want to be inspired. And the community is what we use to make the most of it. So I think that's a really great thing, and having that conversation with Ron really opened my eyes to the big benefit of what we have to offer. So if you guys want to be challenged and you want to get some inspiration and you want to be a part of a big community, this is a great place to start. Check out the YouTube channel on YouTube. Kind of like Mr. Redundancy over here, too.
Welcome to the Redundancy Center for Redundancy.
Check it out, like, subscribe, and share. Also, join the community on Google+. Be a part of what we're talking about here. Every time that we have a photo opportunity that comes up to shoot like the Vaughan Film Festival or so on, we put that out there to the community so everybody gets first crack. When we had our first batch of Photo Expo tickets go on sale, the community is who knew about that reduced price of $150 only. It's going to be coming back, by the way. We had the next batch of tickets going up on sale as of Monday, the 6th of April. The tickets will be $250, still super cheap, all-access multi-pass, so look forward to that. And also, I just really want to thank LensPen for being such a great sponsor for us. They've given us great products we can give away on day trips, and of course, we give them away for photo challenges, which this is not a photo challenge week. This is a topic week. So the photo challenge week will be next week, where we're going to give away our LensPen kit. So keep your eyes tuned to that and get your photos out there. And yeah, it'll be a lot of fun. So just one quick note, Gabriel, no. Okay. So I had to go there. So let's get into our show, guys. What do you think? Are we on time to get right into it?
Do it.
Doing pretty good. Awesome. So what kind of studio are we talking about? Navi, why don't you start? What do you think people would make photos for using the studio we're about to talk about?
I think maybe the more common one would be if you're trying to sell something on Kijiji or eBay, right? You just want sort of a nice product shot to show, the phone you're trying to get rid of, and you don't want to, looking on some gross carpet under whatever, your living room. You want it to be, nice, so people actually want to buy it, not your crusty carpet. So you want to have some sort of setup. There you go.
There you are, just like what Gabriel's showing there.
Phone on a nice, clean background. So this is a pretty, it can be a very simple setup to kind of get yourself going. And you can use it for not only eBaying or Kijiji, you can just use it for, trying out product photography if you think that's something you might like.
Mm-hmm. There's a whole industry in stock photography as well. I mean, just taking pictures to sell for stock. Like that photo of the phone that you had there, Gabriel, didn't have an icon or a logo, so that's probably something that could be used as a stock photo.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Now, absolutely, for Kijiji, eBay, things like that, I mean, we're all trying to sell some stuff. You have some stuff lying around the house. If you just take a quick cell phone picture with it, it's not really going to look that great. So set up a little studio like we're going to talk about. Now, another thing that I found is really cool that not enough people do is just taking photos of stuff you own. I own Bowen's lighting. Take a picture of it. Make it look good so that if I do have any kind of fire or my house gets robbed or I'm on a job site and somebody steals something, whatever, I have visual proof of everything that's important to me as a photo. So just setting up a simple backdrop, like we're going to talk about, is a great way to just itemize everything that we own for insurance purposes. Gabriel, you did something different. You did all this jewelry photography for quite a while.
Yeah, and the setup that we had there is pretty much identical to what you're going to have in a home studio. It was basically 3 lights, one on either side and one on top, and variety of different types of backgrounds. I can do a quick screen share here.
We are going to get into all of the products that we're going to use, if that's what you're sharing.
Nope. Just a couple of the shots.
Sweet.
Should I do that now or later? Or?
Yeah, you should do that, but you should probably clear off that screen there, the little chat.
Oh wait. So all this is one LED light on a piece of glass with some black cardboard paper underneath it, and softbox on either side.
Interesting idea. Just a glass with a black cardboard. Everybody's looking for this black reflective glass, but you don't need it. Just a piece of glass with black cardboard.
Yeah.
Yeah. At the shopping center, we just use what's it called, like acetate, like just the stuff, the thin plasticky stuff.
Yeah. That comes in all different colors, right?
Yeah. It's, I don't know if I'm calling it the right name, but it's just a clear piece of plastic that you can just roll up afterwards when you're done, so it doesn't take a huge amount of space.
Yeah, okay. And that's a nice thing with that, is that it doesn't create that double reflection that you can sometimes get with glass.
Yeah.
This was very, 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 very basic. It's basically just, I've got a little plastic thing inside the watch to hold it up, a little bit of sticky tack on the band to hold it up, and then it's just being shot again on a piece of glass with white underneath it, and then just a white piece of foam core behind it. And a soft box on top, and then one on either side. You can see the reflection of the soft boxes like that. And then for this one here, I also put a piece of white foam core in front, and I cut a hole in the middle, and I'm shooting through the hole so you get consistent lighting throughout it. So, I mean, yeah, and you can really control any glare that you want. Like I wanted the reflection to go halfway through the glass here. So I mean, I'm using like 3 lights, and all of my big props are $4 sheets of foam core.
Yeah, nice.
This was shot like the first one. This was 4 or 5 shots because each shot would have a different sparkle in it, and I just blended the sparkles together in Photoshop.
Neat.
This here is just a thin piece of plastic, like Navi was talking about, with like some textured gray paper slid underneath. One softbox on the top, and then one on either side. You can see there. You can see the reflection of the 3 softboxes.
Yeah, just looking there.
Again, just very, very basic. With diamonds it's hard because if you go 0.5 millimeter to one side, you're going to get a different reflection. But this was actually a white bottom, but I stopped down the aperture and stuff to get a little bit more depth of field, and it turned it all gray.
Nice.
And yeah.
Very cool. Great examples.
So, I mean, that's just, some things. I mean, those went in that one watch there, the Cartier watch. That's I think it was about a $600,000 watch.
Oh yeah.
I was shooting with about $400 worth of equipment, and it sold for $300 and some odd thousand at auction.
Wow.
So.
What was that, Navi?
What a steal of a deal! Half price, man.
Yeah, pretty much everything that at the auctions was half price. So it was. But when you're shooting a $1.2 million ring.
I thought I saw the watch up in the cubby in the back right behind you there. I saw it glistening out, but I don't know, maybe I'm seeing things. Yeah, so these are all things that you could use this kind of stuff for. Navi even made the mention of, taking photos of artwork and things like that, right, Navi?
Yeah, so, if you, I guess it depends on how big your piece of art is, but if you just want, even lighting, You can have a setup to, if you want to do reproductions of art, like how to do some photos of, I guess, a collage that somebody made because they wanted to do poster prints, like reproduce it and sell posters. So you can do that kind of stuff too if you're an artiste.
All good ideas. I just want to remind people who are watching right now, if you have anything to add, if there's any thoughts that you might have, if you have any suggestions and things that we're talking about, go ahead and use the Q&A app within the Hangout. If you don't know where it is, hover your mouse over the window, go to the top left over there. It's going to be the second or third option down, and you can just click Q&A and start chatting away to us right away. So if you already know where that is and you're just being quiet right now, that's okay too. That's okay too. All right, so let's get into some of the products that we're going to use to make these photos, right? So we've talked about some of the things you can do with it, but what do we really need? Gabriel, you suggested maybe like $400 worth of stuff. So what's the first thing that you need when it comes to shooting this kind of stuff?
What's the first thing that you need, or what's the first thing that I would recommend?
What would you recommend?
I would like. I know a lot of people that do studio photography and they're natural light photographers, right? And they put everything next to a big window, they put some blinds on the window, and away you go. The problem with that is if you start doing it for a living, you need consistency. If it's a cloudy day, you can't shoot. If your shoot goes long, like if you're doing food photography and it goes long and the sun starts to go down, you're SOL. So I would say, I know there's a lot of people out there that love speed lights, but I would say go for some studio lights.
Now, when you say studio lights, you're not talking about constant lights, those lights that people could buy for $200. You're talking about actual studio strobes, like my Bowman's or something.
So, yeah, right now I'm on the Alien Bee, PaulCBuff.com, right? And he makes really good lighting. I'm looking at he's got a few different units here, but the entry level, the Alien Bees, they have the B400, which is $224, the B800, which is $279. So they're really reasonable.
Is that per pair or each?
For each.
Okay.
So you can get a B800 for $279 with a large softbox. So say a 32 by 40 inch softbox, which is $129. So you're in the door for like $400 or $500, right? And you can start off with that and just use that light and a reflector or foam core. This is my major tool that I use all the time for product photography, and it's like $2 at Staples.
Oh, it's cheaper at Staples than it is at Michael's. Darn.
Michael's is ridiculous. I've gone there a couple times. Had to buy it there out of necessity and.
Darn.
Okay,
myself.
Before we go too far, I just want to kind of quickly mention about the flashes you were talking about, the strobes. That brand, per se, is not available in Canada. You have to order it online only. And the reason it's not Alien Bees, the reason they're not actually available in Canada is because they are not CSA approved. So if your house has a fire, if anything goes wrong and it's deemed that the lights are the cause, your insurance won't cover it. Just thought I'd say... throw it out there. So if you are buying,
when you're done using them,
yeah, just unplug them when you're done using them. Stick with them when you're using them. I guess they're great quality product. I'm certainly not saying that they're going to fry. They're probably not. They're perfect fine, but they didn't go for CSA approval, and that's the only reason they're not up here in Canada. It would cost a lot of money, and they're a small business, and that's why they can charge reasonable pricing for their lighting. And the lighting's good stuff. Everybody I know that owns Alien Bees loves it. So.
Yeah, no, they're great little units, and they're rugged, and they shoot forever.
Mm-hmm. Now, sorry to cut in there, but Navi, you like using speed lights, right?
I've used both. The speed lights are great because they're portable, right? I mean, I guess depending on what kind of work you're doing, if you need to be on location to do it, it's good because you don't need any AC power, right? And then I like that. Companies like Westcott and stuff make softboxes for speed lights, so it makes it a little bit easier to have a similar effect. Obviously, they're not going to be as powerful, but you're in a controlled environment, so you're a little more flexible with it. You could be on a tripod, so you can do a forward shutter if you needed to. But if If your budget allows it, it's great to have studio lights. But I think you can still achieve really great photos using speed lights or even continuous lights. But the only thing is with continuous lights, they're not going to be as bright.
So why is it important to have them so bright? Because Gabriel mentioned earlier how he likes using the strobes because they're so bright you can stop your, well, he didn't mention this specifically, but you mentioned the ring picture, you got to stop it down to like f20 or something like that. So
exactly. Right, so you can stop down and still have enough light for your product to light it. So that's why continuous lights, they're good because you can see where shadows are falling versus using flash because there's no, you have to take the picture to look at it.
There's no constant light hitting them creating a shadow.
Right. But they're not bright enough because we actually had a lady who kind of take some photos of some products for her company and she was having a lot of trouble because she's seeing examples online that looks like this, and then she's seeing what she's getting with hers. Hers were also unedited, so you will require some editing to make it look like the way you want it, but it just wasn't enough.
If you're talking about who I think you're talking about, she was shooting chocolate too.
Yes.
So constant lights that generate heat actually melted the chocolate.
Yeah.
So she had to change her plan altogether and go for a cooler light. Something else to think about. All right, well, so now we've talked about kinds of lights that people can use. What about modifying these lights? Like, what would you guys recommend for some sort of diffuser of some kind? And do you think that that's necessary?
For sure. Like, you have to have some sort of diffuser to kind of even out the lighting. So, I think both Gabe and I use softboxes versus umbrellas because it's, if you need to feather the light, it's a little bit easier to control. There's not a whole lot of spill. And then for other, I guess, modifiers, you can use the foam core. So that's same thing with shopping channel, 3 lights, whole lot of foam core.
Yeah. Do you have some foam core handy? So it's just a big board, right?
Just a big board, yeah, and it's like cardboard. It's unfocusy. There you go. So there's the black ones. Be careful when you buy the black ones because some of them have this stupid grid on one side that it's hard to notice in the store, and then you get it back and you take a picture after setting up your studio for like 25 minutes, and then you notice it and you get all angry. So make sure you get the plain black, but the white is usually pretty easy to notice.
It's one of the most handy things you can have in photography tee, don't you think? Just a nice big piece of white foam core.
And it's nice because you can just cut them if you're shooting small pieces to fold them in half so you have a freestanding thing. You don't have to hold it. And if you're going to cut it, I would recommend you measure it out as opposed to me just trying to break it in half and as opposed to sitting perfectly in half like this. It kind of sits like this. So it sort of defeats the purpose of having a freestanding.
Wow. And these are things that you only learn through experience, too, isn't that right?
Ooh. Don't laugh at me.
All right, well, that's cool. Now, we have lighting. We've talked about strobe, we've talked about flash, and we've talked about constant light. And we've even talked about natural light and kind of ruled that one out just because of inconsistencies, and that makes a lot of sense. We've talked about how to modify that light, and a softbox basically goes over the front of your strobe or a flash, and it spreads the light out to a bigger size. Larger the size of light, the softer the light. So if you're shooting like a car, you need a huge softbox. If you're shooting jewelry or something like that, you can get away with a softbox, but you want it still to be wide enough to soften that light. Is that right?
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, I was still using 2 foot by 1 foot soft boxes just for shooting a tiny little ring or a necklace or something.
Cool. Now, how do we fire those lights? Like we have a light, it's inside of a softbox.
Can I show you a quick photo of what a car would look like?
Yeah.
Video. You see this giant diffuser panel here?
Oh, that's awesome.
Oh,
Right?
Oh man.
Wouldn't that be nice?
There you go. So if you're shooting a car, there you go. You need a giant softbox in studio.
Now it's cool. That picture's actually really cool because you can see the heads popping up the top. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 separate lights inside that big, huge thing with a diffuser panel. That's really neat.
Yeah, I was listening to a podcast the other day, and one of the photographers was talking about a car that he was shooting. They were using soft boxes that were so big they actually had to be held up by cranes. So it was like an outdoor shoot, and they had to bring these cranes in. They were holding them, and it's crazy.
That certainly isn't home studio on the cheap.
Nope.
No.
It's a start.
Unless you're doing model cars, which are...
Yeah, model cars.
Yeah.
That's okay. A lot of people take pictures of that, too.
Yeah?
So, so how do we fire these lights, though? Like, are we connected through cords? Are we firing through connections? Obviously, a cord would be the cheapest way to go, unless you have a creative lighting system on a Nikon camera where you can use the pop-up flash to fire off-camera flashes, like that. Or
I use these good old Pocky Wizards.
Ditto.
So Pocket Wizards are great because they're radio frequency, and they fire all the time.
Yep, super reliable. I've had these for many years now. I've never had an issue with it. They are a little bit expensive, so if you're trying to start cheap or on a budget, you can get other brands that sort of work in the same idea, radio frequency, like the Cactus, like you mentioned. And there's different versions of the Pocket Wizard +3 series. This is, I guess, not the highest end one, but sort of like the most popular. There's one that's below this that's a little more simplified. There's a couple channels, and that's about it. But
I have the Pocket Wizard EC models, the El Cheapo. And there are a couple models lower, but I mean they have 3 channels instead of 14.
Yeah.
But especially when you're working in a home studio, that's all you need.
Right. Yeah, and you can sometimes find like the older versions, like the +2s. I actually have 1 or 2 of those for cheap as well. So someone who's upgrading you might get a set for $150 or whatever.
Cool. I'm just checking out the Plus X. You're looking about $90 each. The Plus 3, like you had, they're about $170 each. But you mentioned the Cactus, and Cactus is another trigger system. You get 2 of them in a package. They're $100, and it's okay. I should stipulate the Cactus V5. The V4s not so consistent. The V6s are very good from what I hear, but the V5s, I mean, for $100 for 2 of them, each is a transceiver, so
good.
Each one can transmit or receive, so you don't have to worry about which one you grab out of your bag. You just have to make sure the switch is on TX or RX. And as I say, for $100 you get 2. I mean, if you have 3 flashes, you get 2 of these kits for $200, and they're radio frequency systems that actually work very well. So that's a very inexpensive option. There's other brands too. Young Nuo is a big name that everybody hears about these days. Did you guys hear about Young Nuo? What happened?
No.
Canon bought them.
Oh, really?
Oh, really?
There's talk. I don't know if it's official yet, but
this is an April Fool's thing.
I don't know about that. They paid like $10 million or something.
They're copying everything Canon does to the T.
Exactly. It's exactly right.
For half the price.
So it's just the way it goes, I guess. But I'm just gonna see if I can find out any concrete information there. Canon buys knockoff brand Young Nuo.
When was this posted?
This was posted 1 day ago from F-Stop Lounge. It's an unprecedented move to stop the counterfeit products hurting their reputation. Canon Japan has made a bold move to purchase the well-known Chinese manufacturer Young Nuo. The rumored 59,640 million yen purchase, which is about 500 million US, is said to include the naming rights for the lookalike flash units, batteries, and the newish line of lenses, which is said to include an unreleased flagship 135mm f1.2.
I refuse to believe anything for the day before April Fool's and the day of April Fool's and the day after.
Yeah, we'll see how it goes. We'll see how it goes. Okay, Andrew just piped up in the Q&A. He says so far he's liking his Cactus V5s. He hasn't used a lot yet, but they work well and they're very easy to set up. I agree, and I'm glad you have them. They're very cool. So what else are we getting into here? So soft boxes, triggers. We've talked about some strobes and backgrounds. Backgrounds are pretty important. What you put behind what you're shooting. Now, we've talked quickly about some of the fake, or like a piece of glass with cardboard underneath it. That's probably fairly inexpensive. Now, remember, guys, when you're shooting products, you don't need a piece of glass, like huge, right? You only need whatever is going to cover the underside of the product you're shooting. So if all you're doing is taking pictures of this, you just need a little piece.
Yeah.
So you don't need to go crazy with all that stuff. Seamless paper. A lot of people buy seamless paper. They come in rolls of 5 foot or 9 foot long, 53 feet, so you can pull them out. And they're nice because they're seamless. Gabriel, you mentioned about the board you have, how it has that texture on the back.
Right.
You're getting away from that with the paper, right? So just kind of roll out a piece, cut it, you've got your bottom to work with. And you can get that in all different colors.
I just want to make a note about the light boxes that you can buy, like the ones that are, they fold up and you put your little things in it.
Mm.
They're convenient, they're all sort of all in one kind of thing, but sometimes they come with the multicolored cloth or Velcro things you put down as a seamless background. Depending on how close up you're shooting or how big the product is, a lot of times you can see the fabric, the texture of the fabric. If you're shooting a tiny ring, you're going to pick up all the little lint. So that kind of stuff, it's better to use something like paper because you don't get any texture on it.
Awesome point. And actually, I had another point about the soft boxes in our notes. Make sure it's large enough so that when you're shooting into it, the interior is completely you're not seeing the edges of the interior, because those edges inside there are always going to show in your photo, and that means more cropping and more editing. So it's not just the texture, which is absolutely valid. It's also making sure that the edges of the inside. Make sure your softbox is big enough. So if you have something this big in there,
you mean the light box?
Light box, yeah, not softbox. Just make sure it's large enough so you're not seeing the inside edges, which can be really annoying. A trick for getting rid of the texture that you're talking about, Navi, is to use a telephoto lens, go back further and zoom in. That'll flatten depth of field enough to make that more soft. Yeah. But still, it's something to think about, and it's a super valid point. Awesome. Okay, so we've talked about how all these things are used for the most part, so that whole section there is pretty much covered. Except for color correction card. What do we have that there for?
Well, if you're trying to shoot, a bunch of things and have it look consistent, you want to be able to match because sometimes certain lights, when they fire each time, they can be inconsistent with the color temperature. I've actually experienced this recently with my Ellen chromes. Sometimes they're shooting a little more warm than other times, which is annoying. But if you have sort of a starting point, you can, use your eyedropper. Gabe, do you have your card thing? Here, let's see. Give me 2 seconds. Got it. All right, so before I start, you do your color checker. Then when you go to edit it, you have a little sample, all the whites and stuff down here, to just use the eyedropper sample from that and then sync it. And that way, all the color temperature should be synced.
Okay, now that's a good point. You say sync it. That also leads to the other thing that we have on the list, editing software.
Yes. You will probably want to do some editing, just if you need to clean up little dust spots or just make it a little more contrasty.
Yeah, that's a good point, is that everything is way more dusty than you expect it to be.
Yes. Especially if you're shooting, small items like rings and jewelry and fingerprints too. Oh God, fingerprints.
Mm-hmm.
All the jewelry and stuff. So
that totally leads me to another thing that everybody should own when you're shooting macro photography is a lens pen. Seriously, I mean, I talked about this before. When you have little figurines or anything that you're shooting that's just sitting around for a while, when you look closely at it, I guarantee there's going to be some little dust particles in there. And just use the back brush. There you go, Cartman. Get it. Sorry. Couldn't help it. Yeah, and then on the other side of the lens pen, you can get rid of fingerprints with the little pad.
Yeah.
Like,
or if you're using, like a white backdrop, and let's say you're shooting something like shoes, you're going through so many items that eventually it's going to, create some scuffs and stuff like that you're going to have to remove afterwards if you want to create a consistent look.
Mm-hmm.
And another good accessory is vinyl gloves.
Yeah.
I buy them in packs of 100, and it just stops fingerprints and dust. Like once you've got everything the way that you want, just throw one of those bad boys on, move things around, or use tweezers or something like that.
Very cool. lots of good tips so far, guys. This is pretty cool. Anybody who's looking to make a little home studio for themselves, I mean, play this back if you haven't caught everything, because there's been some really interesting things that you're going to need to think about getting. Not very expensive stuff. The board, you said $2 a sheet or something like that. I mean, it's a
$2 to $5.
very handy thing to have on hand. When we went to Frank Contreras' house, Frank does a lot of food photography. He had a whole room full of stuff that he's just acquired. He's a chef, so special forks where he's found them, knives, backdrops, textured wood, all kinds of really cool stuff that you can get very cheap. Now, do you find your wood that you use for your photos? Do you find that cheap somewhere?
I sort of. I bought some of it at Home Depot and made my little square wood board, and the other pieces I got at a garage sale. I was there, and he happened to have his garage open. I'm like, "Can you eat those?" He's like, "No." I'm like, "I'll just take them off of you." He's like, "Okay." Now, the road, and I see some piles of trash. I'm like, "Ooh, can I use any of that, as backdrop?" So, yeah, so you can find that kind of stuff.
I think that goes part and parcel with being a creative person. Is the minute you see something, it triggers inspiration, and you just think, "Yeah, I could use this for that." Or
yeah, I kind of yanked my. Well, hopefully they don't watch the show, but they won't. They're old, but they're like 80, so they're fine. But now she has like these plants outside my house, like my landlord. I mean, they're dead because it's winter, but I didn't think about using it for my Walking Dead shot until the day I did it. And I got out of my car and I saw it. I'm like, oh, great, yank. And, it looked great for the photo. So, I think you kind of have to be in the mindset if you're looking for different backgrounds and different things.
Right.
And sort of just keep an eye out for that kind of stuff.
And yeah, you can have. Trish was doing a baby shoot the other day. And so this flooring here, although it looks like it's taken on their living room floor, this was flooring that they used for their second floor, like their second floor, and they had about half a package left over that they weren't using, and so I snapped it all together and put it down over top of the carpet, right, and set up the lighting. And so if you're wanting to do this, for a living, you can get, or even just as a serious hobby, you can get 12 or 13 sets of different floors. And they're just tongue and groove. They just snap together.
And then they snap apart and put them away.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, the whole thing folds into 3 foot by 4 inches.
Very cool. Leslie Jones is watching our show right now, and he asks, "Is this really live?" Well, I hope so, or else there's something weird going on.
Well, there's a little bit of lag time, remember?
Oh, yes, there's a bit of lag time. There's about 20 seconds ahead of
which we found out with Jeopardy or.
Oh yeah. But thanks for watching, Leslie. I don't think we've seen you watching the show before, and if you have any questions, go ahead, post them in the Q&A, and we'll see it. It is live, somewhat.
I was gonna say with the wood pieces too, like you can buy. Like I just bought little. I can't remember what type of wood it is. I don't know. I don't like Home Depot. But just little, strips of wood, and I just glued them together to make the square board. And I just painted it to, whatever background you want. So
awesome.
It's like, probably, what's that, 2 by 2 feet? 3 feet?
Mm-hmm. That's handy.
We didn't mention? What kind of camera you should have?
Yes, you're right. We didn't mention that. So what kind of camera would we use for this? I'm going to throw out there to use an iPhone or, a Kodak Instamatic or something.
I just use this, and I'll explain it to you, and I'll draw out the picture for you when you want to see it.
With a chisel. No, we would recommend an SLR, or at least a point-and-shoot camera that has manual capabilities. You want to override the regular normal auto settings, or else you're just going to get a flat, normal-looking photo. So yeah, it's something that you want to have some manual control over. So use an SLR, use something with true manual controls. And plus, with an SLR, you're able to use flash, off-camera flash, and all these other things too.
Yeah, that's the problem with cameras. If you're stuck using auto, because then it's gonna fire the flash. You don't want that. Right? Because it's gonna blast his front-facing flash, and that's not gonna look good.
There's a point though that Gabriel, you made earlier, the photo that you took where you cut a hole for the lens.
Through the foam core.
Through the foam core, yeah. If you're ever shooting something...
And cut a lot of holes through lenses.
No, for the lens in the foam core.
Oh, for the lens. Okay,
the lens,
that makes
yes.
more sense.
That you're right about that. If you're shooting something from the top down, so if I have a flash and I'm taking a picture of it, and I have this on the counter and I'm looking down at it, anytime you put lights around it, you're going to see reflections like crazy, especially on things that are reflective, right? So it's a good idea if you're going to do that. Take a piece of foam core or take a piece of the material that you'd use to diffuse on the front of soft boxes or anything like that. Put it over top of everything, cut a hole in it, and put your lens through there. And that way, if the lights firing in aren't going to give you that harsh shadow. So that's a neat little tip that you could use if you're doing any kind of product photography. And what does one need to set up something like this? An idea, a webcam, a microphone, and people to watch. Now you don't even need people to watch. We're used to it.
Yeah.
Just somebody to talk to.
Yeah. What, Nevi?
Somebody to talk to.
Somebody to talk to, yeah. Have a couple cool guests or co-hosts that you can hang out with, too. What'd you say, Gabriel?
I said one or two of those are optional. You don't really need people to watch.
No.
And, yeah.
It's a lot more fun when you have friends that you can do it with, too.
Yeah. If you do it without a camera, it's called a podcast.
Okay, so what's the deal with podcasts that are now on TV? Wrestling, I watch wrestling all the time, and now there's like the Stone Cold podcast where it's Stone Cold Steve Austin and a wrestler sitting there in a studio with lighting and everything having a video conversation.
Well, that's not a podcast. The podcast is recorded audio.
I thought it was just audio.
Yeah.
But they're recorded at the same time, no? So it's for if you're on the road.
Yeah, if you're watching it live, but then they offer the audio in a downloadable format, right? Then that would be you could be watching the podcast being made, right? But the problem is that a lot of people forget that it's not a visual medium, and so they'll be like, "Yeah." So I was standing there and I was all like, when you're listening to it, you're all like, "He was like what?" Yeah, exactly. So. You have to. There's about 20 some odd podcasts I listen to every week, and you have to get the ones that remember that it's not a visual medium. Otherwise, it can get really frustrating.
Good point. Okay, let's get back into our conversation here. So we've talked about making sure the light boxes are big enough. We've talked about some of that stuff. If you're using the creative lighting system, and again, creative lighting system is basically it's infrared. So when this thing pulses the signal, it fires. It sends a signal to fire this thing. So these guys will speak to each other. And in fact, it's super easy to do. And since I have this right here, with Nikon at least, you just put this guy here to remote. Boom, boom. It's on remote. You turn your camera menu into commander mode, which mine is usually set for, and as soon as you take a picture, it fires the other flash as well. So it's pretty handy. The problem with that, though, and this is a little things to think about, is line of sight. So if I cover that little sensor right there with my thumb, it will not fire. Doesn't matter what I do, it won't fire. It has to receive that signal. If you are using radio frequency triggers, that doesn't happen. So if you're putting these inside of a softbox and you're worried about making that connection, or if you're shooting anything where there's interference between you and the receiver of the flash, the creative lighting system probably won't work for you. So this is where the pocket wizards are going to come in handy and other options like that. What do you guys think of like a chroma key to green screen out the background?
I'm not crazy about it. I think with things when you have chroma key, you gotta make sure you light everything really evenly and there's no creases, because if you miss that, it's gonna be really hard to have to take that out, because it's not. If you're gonna try to key something in, it's not gonna see that shadow part. So I have little specks of shadow. I've had to go through that, and it's really, really awful. Hours of trying to take all these little pieces everywhere.
Yeah, the least amount of edit, the better, right?
Yeah, I think I'd rather just have the background that I need and do it that way.
Now, you've both shown photos with white backgrounds and dark backgrounds, and you've even shown photos with dark backgrounds that were originally white. So this is where learning your equipment becomes so much more important, right?
Yeah, and it also depends on what sort of look you want for the photo, right? It's you know, a stock shot or a photo you're trying to sell is going to be different than like a creative advertising product shot, right? So it's going to be depending on the look that you want as well.
Leslie, what software platform does one need to run this from? This is a Google Hangout. This is free. You can just jump into Google Plus and watch this through Google Hangouts, or create your own Hangouts doing it this way. And how does it move from one person to another? Well, either I can move it. Hi, Navi. Hi, Gabriel. Hi, me. Or I can let it just kind of bounce around. So whoever says something, it would automatically move to them.
Yeah, it does voice detection, so whoever's making the most noise, it automatically focuses on them.
Waka waka waka. I just want to show this here, like talk about the different sort of type of product shots you can do. So he has his on white, and then he has his fancy, you know, more creative stuff.
Those are gorgeous.
Yeah.
Who is this?
Some person named Robert Watson. I just googled Toronto product photographer.
Oh, cool.
So.
See, props are so important, and this is where having that creative eye makes the difference. It's that extra 10%. You know, you have that creative eye, you know what props to use, you know what colors go with what. Complementary colors are very important. And when you're staging a photo shoot like this, you have to make sure that you're thinking of all of that, or else it's not going to give you the same impact.
Right.
These are really neat.
Jewelry photography, I mean, I'm sure, Gabe, you know, is a lot harder than people think because there's so many reflective surfaces and things to clean up in post.
A lot of cleaning, yeah. When I first started shooting with the last company, they said, okay, you got your camera, you got your studio, we want 50 pictures a day. I'm like, that's fantastic. I can give you 12. So, yeah, no, I mean, there's a lot of, especially, you know, I mean, if you're, it's a little bit different if you're trying to sell something on Kijiji, but if you're selling, you know, an $800,000 necklace, you really want to spend some time and clean it up.
Yeah. Absolutely.
I know for the shopping channel, we actually had a separate person to do our editing. So we would shoot to sort of a guideline to make it consistent for them and try to make it as clean as possible, but they would get the files and they would do all the cleaning up because there was so much work that, you know, we didn't have time because we were shooting all the time.
Right.
And what's the expression, 5 minutes in setup saves 5 hours in post? Something like that. So, yeah, think ahead, plan it out, do it right.
Well, and even if you do, like, is this a good time to show a couple photos?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, so even if you do think it out, here you go. So this is one of the pictures I did in my whiskey series, right? And you know, I love this picture. It's great, but in going through and digging up my images for tonight, I decided to find the original. And so this is in my living room at an at-home studio.
But don't you mean this is your apple juice series?
Yeah, actually, this one here, you're right. This was apple juice because I didn't want to waste the whiskey. And a lot of times in photographs, apple juice looks more like whiskey than whiskey does. But this was the original, right? So, I mean, the original is really not all that flattering. You can see a lot more reflections. You can see a lot of splashes down here. You can see a lot of extra stuff that you don't want. So, you know, knowing how to post-process it, and most of this post-processing, the imaging and the sharpness and everything was all done in Lightroom, but then I do all my heavy lifting with cloning in Photoshop. So, you know, got rid of all this up here, all the splashing and everything down here, all in Photoshop. So you can see that those images are night and day. Yeah. So, you know, sometimes you can't get it 100% in camera, you know, for the actual image, and then you have to know how to use your software. So this is another one. You know, this is the final product. This was the original picture. So this isn't as bad, but there's a lot of stuff here in the middle that I touched up. Right, all that's gone. There's a big drip off the bottle here that I didn't want, so that's all gone. There's some dust down on the bottom here and everything, and I did some vignetting and just sort of made everything a little bit richer. This one here, this is 3 different pictures, right? I didn't want the props reflecting off the bottle that much, right? So I took one picture with just the corn, then just the bottle, then just this, and then merged them all together. And these are just some quick sort of product stuff. But this is pretty easy to figure out. I was just sort of playing with my new lighting.
And that's another actually really good point. A lot of people don't do that. You know, you get all this gear and then you sit in the closet until you need to use it, and it doesn't hurt to just pull it out and just try random photos. One of the things that I actually put on the list here that you can do with this type of equipment is indoor light painting, which I do quite often. So you just set up a little table. I have these little TV dinner trays that we use for everything, watching TV, and you just open that up. I put a garbage bag on top, turn the lights out, and do some light painting. Can't tell the garbage bag, you can't tell anything, and it's just this right here. So, yeah, you can do a lot of really great things with these small little studio setups. And there's a few people that, if you're interested in going to get inspired by amazing photographers, there's two people that I can think of that are very well known for this. One would be Nicole S. Young, otherwise known as Nicolesy. She actually owns Nicolesy stock photography microstock website, and she's been doing stock for years. She makes a majority of her income through stock. And if you ever have an opportunity, check out Nicole S. Young. Great stock photographer. And I think...
Food stuff.
Pardon me?
Her food photography is really cool.
Her food, yes. Her food stuff is really what she's known for.
Yeah.
And then, of course, the amazing Alex Koloskov, who... I mean, his results are
ridiculous,
over the moon, although listening to his videos is a little difficult because he's got an extremely heavy Russian accent. But super cool guy, and his stuff is phenomenal. Gabriel, you shared at one point his Google photo with the water splashes that he did.
Yeah.
I mean, this guy shoots water like you would never believe. So if you look him up, Alex Koloskov, as Koloskov. Amazing inspiration to go and check into. The guy does great work. Are you pulling that up there?
I'm trying to.
All right.
Here we go.
And if you ever have an opportunity and you want to learn how he's doing it, go to his YouTube channel and you can watch the videos because he puts all these videos out there for people to learn. Of course, he does sell some stuff as well, but a lot of the information. Oh, that's so awesome.
It's so awesome. Like, this is all different unique splashes that he created in his studio, and he captured them individually and then put them together in Photoshop and made this logo.
Yeah, keep in mind he's very, very good in Photoshop.
Yes.
So yes. Stuff, you have to really know your way around the program because like you were saying, that these are individual pieces, and he's probably taking little splatters and stuff from his 200 photos or however many he does to get the perfect splash.
Right.
Yeah.
Very meticulous for sure.
Now, what made me think of him as well was, Gabriel, you mentioned reflective, or actually, Navi, you mentioned shooting reflective things and how Gabe would know about that. He just did a tutorial. I'm talking about Alex. He did a tutorial on how to shoot forks, and they're very reflective. And,
oh my god!
That's where he came up. Where I got the idea of forks are very reflective, and he's shooting it on a. What's that, Navi?
Forks and spoons. Trying to shoot a set of cutlery is the biggest pain in the butt because every which way it curves, it's reflecting everything.
Exactly. This is why he suggested take that reflective material or the diffused material, put it on top, shoot straight down, cut a hole for your lens, and shoot through that. And that way you won't have to worry about all the glare coming through at weird angles.
Yeah, there are a lot of times where we'd be shooting this set of whatever silverware, and we'd be holding the foam core cards, at certain angles to get the proper reflection or contour, because sometimes you don't want it to be all white. You want to show that it's round or curved. But yeah, that kind of stuff is really tricky. So you kind of have to play around with it. But I guess I didn't see the thing on that he did, but that is a great tip to be shooting through it.
So check out his YouTube videos, guys. Does great work, Alex Koloskov. Okay, so that's pretty much our show for tonight. If anybody has any questions, we're going to be here for a couple seconds still talking about a few little tidbits. So go ahead, post them in the Q&A now, and we will see them before the show's over.
I just want to mention, too, if you're shooting on white, you can it kind of gives you some flexibility to shoot multiple. Let's say you're doing a set of something. You can do each individual item, and because it's on a basic white backdrop, you can put it all into one photo.
Much easier than you would if you had texture or anything in the background.
Yeah, and let's say you have 7 something in a set, you're trying to fit it all in one row for your product shot. It's just easier to shoot them multiple and then put them together.
Excellent.
Absolutely.
Yeah, very cool. All right, so don't forget the photo challenge. We're not going to go into this week. That's for next week. And the current photo challenge themes are sweet and for sale. I actually have a photo for sale that I want to share before we say goodbye. And I'm doing this at the end of the show just because if it does come up.
Me.
No. For sale, Navi? Are you kidding me? All right, so where did I put it? That's a good question. For sale, here we go. All right, so I went shooting at Camp 30 again because I love it there, and it was a lot of fun. And when I thought about the theme for sale, my first thought is, well, geez, maybe I want to buy one of these buildings. So I thought, and I thought, well, is it for sale or isn't it for sale? So there's my first photo.
Nice.
Any takers? Yeah, it's going cheap. Anyway,
It's
a fixer-upper, yeah.
It's a fixer-upper, yeah, exactly. Andrew.
It has a lot of character.
That's one way to say it. Okay, so Andrew gives us a point here. Andrew says, for an overhead shot, shooting down like you described, do you need something special on the tripod for the camera to mount? You don't really need something special. A lot of tripods actually have that ability to go horizontal, to come across and straight down. You will need to balance that quite well. Other than that, it's just a positioning thing. Get your tripod up as high as you can get it, aim the lens down, and kind of build the stuff around it. Would you guys have a different tip for that?
That's pretty much what I do. That's what I've been doing for my food stuff. It is a little bit tricky depending, how high your product is. If you can shoot tethered, or there's with the Canon software. I don't know if Nikon has the same thing, but you can see a live view of what your camera's seeing, so you don't have to be trying to tippy-toe and look at your screen or look through your viewfinder, so you can just see it on the computer. So that's been super helpful.
So there's two ways to tether. You can either go into a computer through Lightroom where you take the picture and it pops up afterward, or you can hook up through HDMI output of your camera now and hit live view and hook that into a TV with HDMI input, and you'll be able to see everything that live view sees right away. Yeah. So both good ways to do it. Good tip. And that also helps you save a lot of time. I mean, you'll be able to shoot and shoot and shoot until you get the exact photo you want.
And you'll realize you shot 200 pictures of a coconut. Like, 2 hours later, this is where I've got nowhere.
It's usually the first or second picture that you end up using.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
It's totally true.
For my Walking Dead shot, it was literally the last frame. I was like, there it is, done.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's either the first or last, right? All the stuff in the middle is just trial and error.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, so anything else to add, Gabriel, before we say goodnight? Anything coming up for you?
No. I'm shooting a wedding on tomorrow night, which is like my first weeknight wedding.
Huh.
First ever?
So, yeah.
Yeah, weird. Well, I guess Friday is the holiday, so they can
Yeah.
Thursday night.
Yep. Well, that's cool. Good luck on that. Hope it goes well for you. Navi, anything coming up for you?
No.
So everybody come see Navi at Henry's and
do my next photo of my next food shot. Actually, it was funny because I needed coasters for my next food shot. And
TV dinners?
Yeah, TV dinners. And I had to go to a restaurant. I'm like, oh, shoot. I'll just go to the restaurant and then, borrow some coasters.
Yeah, with full intent to return.
He was familiar with the show, so we kind of started talking about it. And I was like, just so you know, I took some coasters. He's like, oh, well, that's fine. I was like, oh, okay. So I think the girls I was with was a little embarrassed. I'm like, oh, coasters, purse. Peanuts.
I'm at a salt at home.
I don't need the salt. So. But yeah, no.
What?
I won't say from what restaurant, because just in case he gets in trouble. But whatever, they're gonna throw it out anyway. So he offered to give me more. I'm like, I have 4. It's fine.
You can never have too much. All right, so for those who are interested in Daytripper Photo Sessions, we've got a great one coming up in a couple of weeks, low light action photography. We're actually going to be at Battle Arts Academy in Mississauga. We have 4 wrestlers that are going to be running the ropes and doing all kinds of cool stuff for us as we learn to make better indoor action photos. The cool thing about a session like this, and this is going to be a little bit different, Blake Zimmerman is actually helping me teach on this one, and Blake has a lot of storytelling to go on, and he has a lot of interesting things that he likes to talk about as far as creating a story from an image. And when it comes to wrestling, that's really the whole point. I mean, anybody can blast off 200 photos at a wrestling match, but to make an image that tells the entire match in one shot, you can create story, you can create mood, and that's what we're really going to be talking about on this session. So that should be a lot of fun. And I don't know if anybody knows wrestling who's watching right now, but Santino Marella, who used to be a big WWE superstar, well, actually he's not that big. He's actually short, but huge star, and he actually owns Battle Arts, so he may be there too. We have Hornet, we have D-Man, we have Fuerza, and we have one other person, Buck Gunderson, who's going to be our wrestlers. So if anybody's still interested, check out www.daytripperphoto.com. Right there.
That Buck Gunderson, man.
Buck Gunderson.
It's worth the price of admission just for the Buck Gunderson.
You have no idea. Oh, and remind people, yes, we have our photo challenge. Remember I said is sweet and for sale. That's going on until our next episode of the show. There is a huge addition to the prize, and we've been polling people on the Daytripper community about this for a week or so. There's a how-to hangout that we're giving away as a free prize with Navi. So whoever wins this photo challenge, you're actually going to get a free how-to hangout, which is about a $50 value, and you're going to get to have a one-on-one pretty much with Navi, and who knows, maybe if we're free, we'll all jump in there and be a part of this hangout. And we're going to basically teach the topic that you've picked on this poll. Navi, why don't you tell us a quick little 2 cents about that?
Sure. So on our survey currently, there's a couple topics that we don't have to stick to it, but I wanted to see what people want to learn. So we have printing, portrait editing, file management, and the develop module. So far, I think we're leaning towards photo managing. So, but I guess it'll depend on the winner of the photo contest.
54% are asking for photo management Lightroom. That's pretty good.
You know what? It's really. It used to be surprising to me because I was like, I figured everyone would want to know about how to use the program and edit it. But I think a lot of people have problems or trouble just importing and figuring out where their photos are. And
that's what I hear from a lot of Rick Salmon and Juan Pons whenever they're talking about their workshops. They say that they spend half of the first day just teaching people how to find the photos they just imported.
Yeah, most of the private classes that I've provided, that's what they want to know, because a lot of people are coming from iPhoto, which just creates a crazy mess because it's making so many copies of the photos when you're importing it. So so I'm looking forward to that.
Very cool. Well, it's generous of you to offer that. I think that's an amazing value that people don't know how good a value is until after the session's over, and then they're like, wow, that really filled in all the gaps, and that's incredible. We've done how-to hangouts all last year, and they went very well. I think the best one was Gabriel's using Lightroom for time-lapse. Or was that just the promo video was the best?
It was a good promo video.
It was a very good promo video.
Yeah. I'll be making more of those.
Okay. Yeah, it's funny how some people find certain things more challenging than others too, right? Like, for example, we had a whole show on what is simple. And basically we're saying, how many times do I hear this, or you probably hear this as well, Navi, at work, when somebody says, well, it's so simple, you should be able to do this. And meanwhile, it's a 78-year-old lady going, I don't know what you're talking about, Sonny. So
I got here. Isn't that, I'm going to accomplish it enough? The store, I made
it. So anyway, you might have to spend 5 minutes on the phone with somebody trying to tell them how to turn the volume up on their iPad. I don't know who would have to do that. Gabriel? No.
Say nothing.
All right. Okay, so we're going to say goodnight. That's about it for us tonight, guys. Thank you so much for watching our show, and I thought it was a lot of fun. Navi, Gabriel, thank you. You guys are awesome, as always.
Thanks for having me.
Okay.
Awesome, cool. All right, so we're going to say goodnight, and I hope everybody has a good week. Don't forget to submit your photos for the photo challenge. They have to be new photos, not nude photos, but new photos.
That's a whole other challenge.
What's that?
The whole other challenge.
It's a whole different challenge, yeah. We're not doing that. Daytripper Photo is a family-oriented business. So.
That's Daytripper Photo.
Aha! Night
Yeah,
Walker.
so just tune in like 5 minutes after the show is over, because we'll be back on. And then it'll be
So natural.
For Night Walker
I'm
Photo.
going to the gym.
I'm going to say goodnight while we still can. All right, guys. Thanks, everybody, so much. Have a great week. We'll see you all next Wednesday night. Bye-bye.
Bye.